Imagine a world without music. Think about that for a moment. Could we live without music? Could you live without music? For humans to survive, we need food, air, water, and shelter. Of course, we can't forget about sleep and clothes. We do want to look snazzy and always be well rested. So, we don't need music to survive, but would we be whole without it? Music is pretty much everywhere. It's ubiquitous. It's all around us all the time. When you walk into H-E-B, you might hear music. If you go to Starbucks, there might be music playing outside in the patio area. When you go out and eat dinner at a restaurant, sometimes there is light music playing in the background over the speakers, albeit ever so distant in some places. There are also restaurants that have live music. Wow! Isn't that awesome? When we watch movies, sitcoms, and commercials, there is music. When we drive in our cars, we are listening to music, podcasts, news, etc. If the movie Jaws did not have the music of John Williams, would it be as compelling, convincing, or dare I say, as scary? I suppose for anyone that is maybe afraid of sharks, the music pushes it over the top. So what about the Harry Potter movies without the music? Or, for that matter, insert your own favorite movie or show and imagine for a moment there is no music. I think you get the idea. Music plays a huge role in everyday life. Some people work with music in the background. Students will listen to music while they are studying. And our surgeons might very well be listening to music as they operate to calm the nerves or simply just to focus on the task at hand. So, how can we define music? This is a big undertaking, but we could say that music expresses what words cannot. And once we learn to truly listen, that's where the magic happens. So where do we go from here? Well, let's talk about the 4 steps to becoming a good listener. A good listener, a great listener, an awesome listener. Number 1, you want to learn how music works. Number 2, you want to improve your musical memory. Number 3, focus solely on the music. And number 4, practice. Let's go through them a little bit. To learn how music works, you want to learn about the elements of music. That is melody, harmony, rhythm, dynamics, texture, form, instruments, and vocals. If we understand how to recognize the elements in the music we listen to, there just might be much more appreciation for varied genres and styles. Number 2, improve your musical memory. The idea here is to pay more attention to the music around you and events that happen in your life. An example, it's around 1993 or maybe 1994, and I'm working at McDonald's in North Richland Hills on Roof Snow Drive. A blue Mustang comes up to the drive-thru, and I say, "Welcome to McDonald's. Can I take your order?" I complete the order. The car drives around. There are 2 people in the vehicle, and after paying for their order, they park their car, and they come inside to chat with me a little bit more once the drive-thru line calms down. And the cool thing is, I remember the song that was playing, Linger by the Cranberries. I recall both of their names perfectly to this day, and the phone number I received is still memorized. We did get to hang out later, and it was a blast. The ultimate point here is that musical memory and how our brains can connect life events to songs that are playing around us is truly remarkable. Number 3, focus solely on the music. Many of us listen to music passively. That is, music while doing homework, dishes, driving, and other tasks, etc. Now, that's okay. It's all good. The challenge is to listen to music actively without any other distractions. Now, that doesn't mean you cannot daydream, draw, or doodle. That could be part of the process or journey. If you do daydream, draw, or doodle, or write your thoughts on the music as you listen, this can bring you closer to the musical journey or story of the composition. However, when you truly focus on the music, our sole purpose is to concentrate on that active listening session. Try to listen to the music and figure out what's going on with the elements and/or what is the story that you get from the music, whether it be orchestral, opera, ballet, R&B, rock and roll, heavy metal, rap, hip-hop, country, EDM, pop, K-pop, jazz, wow, and so much more. Oh my gosh. Look, there's no right or wrong way to listen or play music. The most important idea here is to improve your musical focus and attention. And remember, whether you like the music or not is irrelevant. Sometimes we learn more from the things we do not like, and you might be surprised that it grows on you. Number 4, practice. While Malcolm Gladwell popularized the 10,000-hour rule years ago in the book Outliers, The Story of Success, there are more things of note on one's journey to greatness. Gladwell based his research on a 1993 paper that was written by Anders Ericsson, a professor of psychology at Florida State University who is internationally recognized as a researcher in the psychological nature of expertise and human performance. And this paper was done with his colleagues that conducted studies in which they concluded that expert violinists derived their talent not from innate abilities, but rather from large amounts of deliberate practice, amounting to 10,000 hours over a decade or more. In his book Peak, Secrets from the New Science of Expertise, written with Robert Poole, Professor Ericsson condenses 3 decades of research into one incredible book. This book he covers chess, violin, memory mavens, star athletes, and more. The big takeaway from this book is that if you want to be great or a master at anything, it's not the number of hours. It's the deliberate practice with a professional coach, instructor, or teacher where you are working on very specific tasks to improve your performance. Some notes on purposeful practice. Teachers must provide activities that will help improve student performance. Keep a daily diary and/or journal or some kind of notes on how you spend your day and practice time. That is, sleeping, eating, working, class, studying, practicing alone, practicing with others, performing, and so on. Feedback and modification of efforts to that feedback, very important. Much of this feedback comes from the teacher or coach in the beginning. In time, self-monitoring will be key to your own feedback as to spot mistakes and adjust accordingly. Mental representations, i.e. self-monitoring, make it possible to know how one is doing, both in practice and in performance. They show the right way to do something and let you know when things are wrong so that you can correct them. Focused practice is imperative, no distractions. Well-defined specific goals are crucial. Do not just repeat things over and over. Once you get it right, you must continue the practice to maintain that awesomeness. And goals will be meaningless and unattainable if there are not systems set in place to achieve said goals. So, you want to put a bunch of baby steps together to reach a longer-term goal. You also want to push yourself beyond your comfort zone. Improvement is hard, and you may not always enjoy the work. So, don't try harder, try differently. The message here on practice can be applied to many things. If you want to get better at something, the right kind of practice will help you get there. To become a good or a great or awesome listener, remember, learn, improve, focus, and practice. Let's take a look at the elements of music one by one, along with some musical examples. A melody is a series of notes forming a distinct recognizable unit. We could simplify that and say melody, it's the tune. Now, saying it's the tune without context and details may not be enough for complete understanding. It's important to dig into this as we move forward and talk about specific songs. So if you take a listen to a song like Patience by Guns N' Roses, what do you hear in the very beginning? Well, you might hear something really cool. Maybe you hear some whistling in there. What's going on? In Symphony No. 9, Movement 2, the New World Symphony, this is by Dvorak. As soon as you hear the main melody on the English horn, what pops in your mind? Whether or not you know the name of the instrument or are familiar with the composition, or maybe you are new to orchestral music, the melody in this music is saying something. I want to challenge you to look at music from all walks of life in a variety of genres, styles, and forms, and work to identify the elements in the music and/or the story behind the music. Our next element, harmony. Harmony results when multiple pitches sound simultaneously. We have chords like dyads, triads, seventh chords, flat seven chords. You could simply take, hey, what's a dyad? We can go CE for a dyad. We can go CEG for a triad. We can go CEGB for a seventh chord or CEGB flat. This is just super, super basic. These harmony, or what we're talking about chords here, they support and enrich the melody. They add depth, richness, and so much more. If you listen to a song like Coming Home, Skylar Grey, her real name is Holly Brooke Hafferman. She writes Coming Home, originally writing this for T.I. as he was getting out of prison. And Diddy, or as some of you know him, Sean Puffy Combs or P. Diddy, he heard it and wanted the song. Now, Skylar had written Castle Walls for Diddy, and that actually ended up on T.I.'s album. Puff Daddy and T.I. switched songs. They switched. Man, wow, how cool is that? For Diddy, the song Coming Home was for anyone going through struggles or obstacles in life and trying to find their way back home. You can check out the different versions of this song, Skylar Grey, voice and piano, or you can look at Coming Home with Skylar Grey, Diddy, Dirty Money, which is on the Last Train to Paris album. Now, the version of Coming Home with Diddy and his group Dirty Money, this is written by J. Cole, Jay-Z, Alex the Kid, and Skylar Grey, where you have Alex the Kid and Jay-Z, they handled the production. So what's something really contrasting to that by maybe a few hundred years? How about A Little Night Music by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart? If you listen to that, what do you hear? What are you thinking? What pops in your mind? What are the instruments? What catches your attention? Have you heard it before? And if so, where have you heard it? So some things to think about there. We know Mozart today as, he's the face of child prodigy, but why? Well, there are 4 things that contribute to Mozart's child prodigy. The parent lottery, amazing family and upbringing. Eidetic memory, photographic memory. Perfect pitch. He could listen to anything and play it back perfectly and even write it down. And he's taken tours in his childhood, probably before his feet could even touch the ground of the keyboard of the time, the harpsichord. So if you listen to Mozart's Serenade for Strings, night music, and pay attention to the rocket theme and how space is used between the notes, some might say that the music is the space between the notes. The beautiful melody and harmony in this piece can be for many quite calming. The rocket theme and its spatial rhythm give it supersonic energy. What's our next element? The cool one, of course, rhythm. Rhythm, the organization of time in music. For many of us, when you talk about a cool beat in a song, what you probably mean is, that's a cool rhythm. Most of us say, that's a cool beat, man, or that's a cool beat or something to that effect. Now, really, a beat is a steady or even pulse. The rhythm is that coolness that many of us are referring to. The most practical way to learn about rhythm is to listen to some music and try to figure out, well, what's going on? If you listen to Rap God by Eminem, you'll notice some fast-moving action in there. And this is an example of fast 16th notes, or you could say maybe slow 32nd notes. Either way, it's moving. Now, I wish I could sing it, but what I can probably do is, well, I actually can. I do know the words. I would skip a few of the EQ words, but I do know it. However, what I can show you that's captivating is just, it's really interesting to hear that And I'm just like, wow, just amazed at that awesomeness in Rap God by Eminem. Maybe that's not the fastest, but it's certainly pretty slamming. It's pretty fire. So what's contrasting to that in terms of rhythm? Well, how about the Black Page #1 by Frank Zappa? You get some very different usage of rhythm and flow. There's a lot of density in those rhythms and some bracketed rhythms that might boggle your mind. I remember playing this music with Terry Bozzio on drum set at the University of Texas at Arlington many years ago. Terry was Frank Zappa's drummer and a guest artist for the UT Arlington Percussion Ensemble. This is a while ago, many, many moons or years ago. We played a few of Mr. Bozzio's compositions and then threw down the Black Page #1 with him. We joined him on a few marimbas and a xylophone, and it was incredible. That's one amazing experience that you never forget, and I will certainly never forget the opportunity to play marimba with Terry Bozzio on the Black Page #1. So that's a great example of something that's very, very different. So what about the mystery behind syncopation? What's that all about? Syncopation is displacement of the beat. It might sound funky, cool, different, or more, but that's kind of our opinion. You could insert your descriptor, adjective, or your own way to talk about syncopation. What does all this mean? Well, to understand the word, really, syncopation, you got to take a listen to a song like Maple Leaf Rag by Scott Joplin. A few minutes with this composition, and you will be well on your way. So I could try to play a little bit for you. Let's see how it goes. If I just kind of get it rolling here for what the syncopation is, then you get this. Well, I did my best there. Hopefully that was nice and grooving. That's that funkiness, that in between the beats, that funness, that coolness. So what would be maybe contrasting to something like that? Well, maybe a parallel possibly, but if we look at the most famous sampled drum beat in like the history of music, arguably, probably the Amen break. And this comes from the song Amen Brother by the Winstons. The drummer in the group who played this drum beat and well-known groovy rhythm was Gregory Coleman. Check out the original song, but it's also been sampled way more times than I can even mention in today's video. But like Straight Outta Compton by NWA, I Desire by Salt and Peppa, the Futurama theme song, Eyeless, Slipknot, Tundra, Square Pusher, and the list goes on and on and on. If we keep going with rhythmic examples in terms of songs, it would be, contrasting, parallel, or just giving different varieties of how rhythm is used throughout time. We can look at something. Let's take a look at like another one of our really legendary drummers, John Bonham. He's playing one of our most famous drum beats in history on When the Levee Breaks with Led Zeppelin. Now, this is one of those drum beats or drum rhythms that is a rite of passage for all drummers, regardless of your genre or style of music. So if I try to sing it for you, let's give this a whirl here. Here, if I can talk. Dun dun chat kum 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 chat dun dun cat kum kum cat dun cat kum kum chat. Now, I think he starts off the song with a double, but whether you learn dun dun cat kum kum chat or dun cat kum kum chat, he basically varies that through whether it's going to be a double on the bass or a single, but whether it's the School of Rock or maybe you're at Berkeley or University of North Texas or STC, South Texas College, or you name the institution, no matter where you are, this beat comes up, all over the place. So you could be a young student, young kid. Really, age is just a number. At any age, just jumping into the drums and this beat. Or rhythm is probably going to come up. Okay, so in music, we talk about the loudness or softness of sound, and we refer to this as dynamics. And dynamics is one of our main elements. So you could also think of this as volume, the dial on a radio or a TV remote when you turn things up or down. But in music, there's nuance with dynamics, so we want to be careful not to oversimplify, but to make sure we understand the basics of dynamics. We have levels through the dynamic spectrum. We have crescendos, which gradually get louder over time. Decrescendos, which gradually get softer over time. The dynamic spectrum includes a range from soft, medium/moderate, and loud. We label the dynamics in music with abbreviations, and a lot of our key musical terms are in Italian, so I'll translate those as we go. Here's the dynamic spectrum. We have 3 Ps, 2 Ps, 1 P, MP, MF, F, 2 Fs, and 3 Fs. Wow, it's pretty quick, right? So if I have 3 Ps, or a triple piano, it's very, very soft. 2 Ps, pianissimo, very soft. You could also say, double piano. 1 P is soft. MP, we can say mezzo piano, somewhat soft. MF, we can say mezzo forte, somewhat loud, medium loud, moderate loud, something like that. F, we can say forte, loud, 2 Fs. Fortissimo, very loud. You can say, double forte. If it's 3 Fs, you can say, triple forte, very, very loud. But that's the basics of the dynamic spectrum. So if you listen to the song What I've Done by Linkin Park, you will notice the level jump in dynamics after the piano and drum intro. Listen for that guitar kick and what happens after. It's very cool and taps into the emotional connection from the listener. Maybe you haven't noticed that before. Check it out. This happens in all kinds of music, all over the place, and it's been going on for hundreds of years. Now, what's in contrast? This is most certainly in contrast to something like Beethoven's Symphony 5, Movement 1. This starts big and loud and aggressive, then it drops to a soft dynamic, and it builds back up again to a full house dynamic with lots of energy. And Beethoven uses this 4-note motive throughout in a similar fashion. The music has its ups, downs, drops, and builds. His use of the horns and timpani will hopefully catch your attention. Now, there's certainly many more points of instrumental interest, not just horns and timpani. And this instrumental interest adds so much musical beauty and awesomeness in his composition, Mr. Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. I want to challenge you to delve into that. I will revisit Beethoven's Fifth Symphony in more detail on upcoming videos. For now, our goal for this composition is to listen to the music actively and pay attention to the use of varied dynamics. Then, try to figure out the instruments playing and the sentiment that connects with the chosen dynamic. Music in movies. How do they do it? And why are we so captivated that we just can't stop watching? To answer this, we need to take a look at Squid Game, a series on Netflix. Let's get into it. I remember watching this and getting so excited by the music, I started taking notes on all of the classical songs. While the list is public now, when it first came out, that wasn't a huge hype and talk of the town. But over time, this has garnered some serious attention. The idea with the musical selections in Squid Game was to keep you watching no matter how scary or gory it was. They certainly succeeded on that front. Now, I must say, I had to turn my head a few times, but the musical selections from Beethoven, Strauss, Mozart, Tchaikovsky, and so many more, wow, incredible. One of the best kept secrets in Hollywood movies is the use of melody and harmony layers. In classical terms, we call this textures in music or musical texture. Texture in music can be defined as the density and disposition of musical lines. So what does that mean exactly? Texture can be light, thin, dense, thick, and heavy. Now, that may not help us too much yet, so let's talk about how we think about texture outside of music, and then come back full circle to texture in music. What kind of textures come to mind to you? Maybe the bark of a tree, grass, or soil? We can't forget about sandpaper, satin sheets, or pillows. And then there's a cactus, which of course may not be that fun to touch. And as I think about this more, I imagine the sand between my toes at the beach and just enjoying the good vibes. We could keep going with this list, and everyone will have different things that come to mind when you think of texture in a tactile way as we normally do. Musical texture is not something you can feel or touch. Consider the hug or embrace of a loved one. We feel something inside of us, and it's an emotional thing. You can get those kinds of feelings and emotions from how texture is used in music. And this comes from listening to the music, song, or composition. It may not always pop out at you, but in due time, connections will be made. Okay, So, if we move philosophy and frame of mind to the side, how can we get back to musical texture and simplify things a bit? Texture. It's what's going on in the music. Wow. That's a little wordy, right? Let's continue with the three primary textures in music: monophonic, homophonic, and polyphonic. Monophonic is melody alone, or we could say monophony. Homophonic is melody and chords, or we could say homophony. Polyphonic is two or more melodies, or we could say polyphony. When we talk about texture in music, it's something that we hear. Whether you are actively listening, which is always my hope as a music professor, or even if you are passively listening. Now, if it's passive listening, that's really hearing, perception of sound, and you are taking in the music just without the processing. Let's look at some monophonic examples. How about Happy Birthday? If we were to sing that in unison, no harmony, that is no chords, it could be 5, 10, or 1,000 people singing the exact same notes. Even if it's split by octaves, it is still monophonic music. If you listen to the song Renegade, just the opening by Styx.
Oh, Mama, I can hear you crying, you're so scared and all alone.
There is a vocal solo that is monophonic. Now, there is a soft bass drum going boom, boom, boom. But this is still a monophonic melody. As we move forward in the song, it does switch to a homophonic texture, melody and harmony, which is melody and chords. Let's take a look at a classical example. If you listen to Movement 4 of Capriccio Espagnol by Rimsky-Korsakov, it starts off with the big snare drum roll, or what we call a multiple bounce roll, which is our sustained sound for that instrument. At this point in quasi-cadenza 1, there is a brass feature with horns and trumpets. The snare drum performer will typically drop down slightly underneath the brass feature on quasi-cadenza 1 after the initial statement is made by the roll. The brass feature continues, and the snare drum roll will decrescendo, and so will the brass. This leads into cadenza 2, and things get interesting. At this moment, there is a wicked awesome violin solo, which is what texture? Yeah, you guessed it, monophonic. The snare drum is still playing underneath the violin solo at around triple piano, which is very, very soft and must decrescendo into almost nothing, while the violin solo basically throws down an amazing display of virtuosity. Next, we delve into the world of homophonic music with what I hope are interesting examples and a story or two. The story of Love the Way You Lie begins with Alexander Grant, known as Alex the Kid, who makes a backing track and a hook melody. Then enters Holly Brooke Hafferman, known as Skylar Grey. Skylar was in New York and went to see her music publisher to get some help and guidance presenting her work. Skylar's publisher at Universal Music, Jennifer Blakeman, suggested that she work with Alex the Kid. Skylar received an email from Alex the Kid with a music track that suggested a theme of abusive relationships. This resonated with her right away. So much so, it's been noted that she sang lyrics to the melody soon after listening, or maybe while she was listening. Skylar felt like she was in an abusive relationship with the music industry. Her sentiments at the time were that she loves music so much, but felt that sometimes the music industry was beating her down. Skylar wrote the chorus for Love the Way You Lie within a few minutes, and later recorded vocals for Alex the Kid's demo. Now, if we fast forward a bit, Alex the Kid brings over some backing tracks to Shady Records, and those were sent to Eminem, and he really dug the tracks. Eminem asked for more tracks, and one of those was Love the Way You Lie. Eminem collaborated with Rihanna on the song, and he wrote the rapped verses. Both Rihanna and Eminem had been in some difficult relationships. Eminem with Kim Scott, they were married twice and divorced, and Rihanna with Chris Brown, who assaulted her and he was then charged with felony domestic assault. Now, we look at a contrasting example. If you listen to Symphony 94, Movement 2 by Joseph Haydn, it starts off soft and calming in a homophonic texture with melody and chords split between high and low strings. So, why do we call it Surprise Symphony? This story has been told for hundreds of years, and one account goes like this. Haydn notices someone sleeping in the audience, or maybe he heard them snoring and decided to cue the orchestra to play a loud chord. However, what we know from Haydn's biographer, who asked Haydn himself, is that while this is a good story, it's not true, says Haydn. The nickname does come from a loud chord that came out of nowhere in the beginning of the composition during the soft intro of the piece. The real story is that Haydn's pupil Pleyel was in town for a concert series, and Haydn needed to make a splash, get the audience's attention. He did just that. Haydn was all about audience engagement during the live performance. During Haydn's time, the audience might clap, roar, shout, woo, and more. As the years have passed, classical concert etiquette has evolved, and now audiences only clap after the music is complete. So, if it's a symphony that has 4 movements, you clap after the 4th Roman numeral. You do not clap in between. If you were attending a concert of the day in the classical period and heading to see a concert of Haydn's, whatever sentiments the audience felt, they reacted in real time to the music in front of them organically. Wow, isn't that awesome? Today, concert etiquette for classical music, opera, and ballet has become very well behaved, and some concert halls have required rules and dress codes. The reason for this makes sense. Composers want to have your full attention on the music from the beginning to the end, and the musicians need to have 100% mental tenacity. I do wonder if we could get back to at least the idea of real-time audience engagement. I play in the Valley Symphony Orchestra, and this is on my mind a lot. While I do understand the musician's on-stage perspective, if the audience for some reason were to distract a musician on stage, that can get in the way of music making and, of course, the performance. I would counter with, music speaks to us, and if you're moved, it would be awesome to hear that. In good taste, of course, dare I say, even if it's in between movements. Now it's time to bring the heat. That is, polyphony, or what we call polyphonic music. If you get a free moment, watch the movie Pitch Perfect 2. I remember when I saw that movie for the first time, I was blown away at the collaboration with Snoop Dogg and Anna Kendrick on Winter Wonderland and Here Comes Santa Claus. What happens here is that Snoop Dogg is singing Winter Wonderland, and at the end of Snoop's first phrase, we get some catchy syncopated rhythm. Then, Anna starts to sing Here Comes Santa Claus directly on top of Snoop, continuing to sing Winter Wonderland.
Come Santa Claus, here comes Santa Claus, right down Santa Claus Lane.
Wow. That's modern-day polyphonic music at its finest. Polyphony is when you have 2 or more melodies at the same time. While this might seem simple or commonplace today, it's quite a challenge to do this with 2 different songs. How about another example? Let's listen to Manfred Mann's Earth Band and their version of Blinded by the Light on YouTube. Blinded by the light. When Manfred Mann starts playing chopsticks on the keyboard, move your eyes to the drummer, Chris Slade, and you'll see that he moves his microphone in preparation for what's about to go down. Watch him very carefully while listening to the lead singer, Chris Thompson, get the chorus going. When the drummer lifts his head up to the microphone, he then sings the counter chorus. You will also see in the video that Manfred Mann joins in on some singing as well. And then, we get some splash with the female backup vocal trio adding another layer to this already awesome song. Now, we also have to give a shout out to Dave Flett on that guitar solo throwdown earlier, and Colin Pattington on laying down some bass. Wow, some killer stuff. Okay, so where's the polyphony? Well, first, let's take note that the original version of Blinded by the Light was written by Bruce Springsteen. In Manfred Mann's version, we have 2 melodies at the same time towards the end of the song. That is done with the chorus by the lead singer and the counter-chorus by the drummer. Now that is some polyphonic awesomeness. Yeah. We have made it to the end of our polyphonic journey. Let's talk about the organ fugue in G minor by J.S. Bach, or known as Little Fugue. The music starts off with a single-line melody, monophonic texture. And as soon as that opening phrase completes, we get another melody on top of that, and we're in polyphonic territory. One of the biggest challenges in fugues is that they have a lot going on. So, I'm not going to do a full breakdown on fugues in this video, but stay tuned for my upcoming video on Bach, where I talk about his life and how his music touches the soul. For now, take a listen to Bach's organ fugue in G minor and listen to that main melody in the beginning a few times until you feel confident that you could follow it throughout as it moves around. Then, play the entire piece while focusing on the main melody and try to count how many times you hear it. This can be tough for many because as soon as you get past the melody in the opening, you get 2 melodies at the same time throughout the composition. While I'm not saying to ignore all the other cool and neat things in this fugue, I'd like to challenge you to focus very specifically on the main melody. I'll come back to this composition later, and we get to do much more of a dissection. So, for now, let's get those active listening skills rocking on some Bach. What is musical form in modern-day music? We can define form as the purposeful organization of music. So, what does that mean? Well, when we talk about form, we are talking about the composition's general shape perceived by the listener. To get a better understanding of all this, let's talk about how we break down and label music. We start with the 3 principles of form: repetition, contrast, and variation. Okay, so repetition. This is familiar material. We have heard this before, and we can label this music as capital A. And then if the music is an exact repeat later on, we would label it as A again. That's a capital A, of course. The musical form may have multiple letters, and any one of them might repeat in the music, and if it's exact, we say, oh, that's a repetition. I've heard that before. Easy enough, right? Have you ever listened to the English folk song Greensleeves? That music is a 2-part form we refer to as binary, and we label that as AB. What that means is that the overall form is AB, and we're using capital letter A and capital letter B. Now, you can further break that down into the smaller A and B phrases. Here is that breakdown. We have an intro, A, B, B. Then there's a transition. Then we have A, B, B. And then there's another transition. And then we have A, B, B. And then we get to the outro. Now, what we're talking about here in terms of labeling with the alphabet letters, we're talking about capital A's, and in this case with binary, talking about the 2-part form with a capital A and a capital B. All right, so where do we go from here? How about variety is the spice of life? Well, maybe it is, or at least it's a cool phrase. In music, the variety comes from what we refer to as contrast. It's that something different. Listen to a song like Simple Gifts. This is a Shaker hymn, Or you could also listen to the Raindrop Prelude by Chopin. If we were to label those compositions, we'd say that's ABA, our three-part form we call ternary. Now, there must be an A section before you get to something contrasting. So, contrast in the form would start at B. Of course, from there, we can go to C, D, E, F. If the music is a multi-letter form like rondo, which would be A, B, A, C, A, or A, B, A, C, A, B, A. Why am I getting faster? Just having some fun. Or how about abacada? A, B, A, C, A, D, A. All right, a little fun there. Now, if you listen to the Raindrop Prelude by Chopin, you will hear that the A section in the beginning and the end. So the A section happens in both the beginning of the composition and the end of the composition. But I need to emphasize the middle of the piece is much darker and very contrasting to the A section. All right, so I think the simplest way to understand the last principle in the three principles of form, this last principle we're talking about variation, remembering that our three principles of form are repetition, contrast, and variation. And what we're doing here is talking about the three principles of form, and then actually, very sneakily I might add, getting to the 5 favorite musical forms basically intertwined within the three principles of form. So, our 5 favorite musical forms we talk about as being, strophic, binary, ternary, theme and variations, rondo, and we're going to get to all of them at some point here, but kind of the head fake here and all the fun. So when we look at repetition, contrast, and variation, and now we're at the fun one, variation, really all you have to do is listen to the French folk song called Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I'm so tempted to sing it, but I'm a terrible singer, so I will leave that to your imagination of actual good singing in the imagination. Now, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart heard this on his travels, and he wrote a piano composition based on Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. This is a great example of what we call a theme and variations. Variation in music, it's familiar, but there have been some slight changes or alterations. In the music, we label this as A, so the A is the theme. And the A or the theme, this is our main melody. Now, when we have A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, etc., those are the variations. So again, variation is familiar. We've heard it. It's been changed a little bit. There's alterations. And we're having this, the form being as first you need the A, your main theme or melody, and then you need the variations of that, main theme or what we call the melody or the main melody. So, we hear variation in music and it's like, I feel like I've heard it before. It sounds different, I'm just not sure. I'd say just listen again, and when you get that vibe or feeling, you might just be in a variation. It could be a drastic change, though, from, say, a major key to a minor key, or it could just be a change in the density. And I say it could, but it could be a big change in the density, specifically the density of rhythm. And that might throw you off at first, and then, aha, it hits you. It's like the light bulb effect, and now everything is illuminated. All right. We can't leave out our good friend strophic form. I mentioned strophic earlier. In strophic, the music stays the same and the text changes. Some examples that you can listen to would be the Brahms lullaby, hymns, carols, folk songs, and patriotic songs. If you were to break down the musical phrases and the form in the Brahms lullaby, you'd get an A, a big letter A. Okay? If you wanted to further break down the music and text, you would get a big A for the music, and then a little A, B, C, C, and then another big A for the music, as the Brahms lullaby would typically repeat, and then a little A, B, C, C, again for the text as we're labeling the text, A, B, C, C, both times. Remembering that music stays the same, but the text changes. Before you listen to the song in English, though, check out the original version in German. It's calm, soothing, and all around relaxing. Awesome. Where are we going to go now? Well, how about we take a look at the song Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Originally a poem, and now a masterpiece, Anthony shares his struggles openly and touches all who listen. The meaning and the story behind the lyrics for many artists have a visceral connection. And might I add that the guitar playing at the beginning and the end of, Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, awesome. Here is the most basic form of the song. We have an intro, guitar solo, John Frusciante throwing down one of our most well-known guitar riffs ever written. Man, wicked cool. We get to verse 1 after that, Anthony, vocals, we've also got some guitar playing there. Next, there's a transition. This is where the drums enter. We have Chad Smith, and we have some guitar chordal downbeat kind of holding through there. After that, we're going to get to verse 2. Anthony, of course, singing, got guitar and drums doing their thing. We're going to get to another transition, and Chad Smith on the drums adds a little more spice with the snare drum rim clicks. We have this guitar chord downbeat holding through. And then now we get to the chorus. I don't ever wanna feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. Oh my gosh, I'm a terrible singer. I'm so sorry to have to sing that to you badly, I might add. But hey, I can sit here and say, I don't ever want to feel like I did that day. Take me to the place I love. Take me all the way. My bad singing aside, that's the chorus, but it takes us intro, verse 1, transition, verse 2, transition, and then we finally get to the chorus. Let's roll with it. We hear the chorus for the first time, we get to a transition, and it's the Yeah Yeahs by Anthony. Now, the drums continue, of course. Drum continues the groove, guitars are more active than the previous transitions. You have John on lead guitar, Feliz on bass, providing really smooth transition material. Now, we're going to get to verse 3. We've got Anthony doing his vocals, we got drums, guitars, it's all happening. And then comes another transition. Now, in this transition, you got drums playing, we got some spice happening there on drums, snare drum rim clicks, guitar chord, downbeat holding through, we're getting that happening. We get to the chorus again, and I won't sing it badly again, but back to the chorus. I don't ever want to feel like I did that day, take me to the place I love, take me all the way. All right, now we get to the bridge. So we have Chad Smith with the drum set lead in playing a fill, and the drum groove, basically opening up. We get the ride cymbal instead of the hi-hat, along with snare and bass grooving hard. You got Anthony on yeah, yeah, and then there's some kind of vocal noodling on the bridge. Now also, if you listen closely, you can hear some killer stuff played by Flea on bass, and man, John is laying down some wicked, amazing flavor as well. Now, after the bridge, I'd say there's a little bit of a transition there. You've got a drum lead in. You then hear vocals say one time. Then we have the secondary chorus. This is with the choir. You have some vocal noodling by Anthony, and we're about to take it home. It's the outro. We've made it to the outro. We've got After the secondary chorus and, the vocal noodle by Anthony, you have, John Frusciante on lead guitar, and you got Flea bringing home some amazing bass, and the song comes to this very, smooth, calming, just beautiful, beautiful ending to Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So, let me give you a few side notes. And it would simply be bridge versus a transition. Okay. So a bridge really is a transition, and it connects two sections of a song. In modern day times, we use this synonymously in popular music, which works totally fine. I'd take it a step further and say that if you want to break down the song into further detail, you could use transition for smaller connectors and the bridge for a longer connections, or transitional passage. In classical music, this gets interesting because we will use transition for short, medium, or long phrase connections. And sometimes, in the same composition, we will use both bridge and transition. There's not really a wrong way to do this. Just listen to the music, and when you try to figure out what's going on in the music, put in some details that make sense to you. Here's another account of backing vocals, probably one that you've heard before. All right, so while recording, Rick Rubin had decided that a choir was needed, and John told him that his mother sang in a church choir. And then we've got, I guess a quasi-quote, or as close as I can get to here. Basically, John's mom came in with her church group, sang the background vocals at the end. This is from Flea. And Flea's like, it was trippy seeing all these smartly dressed, middle-aged women up there singing Under the Bridge downtown. So, yeah, there you have it. This is the form basics on Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. And really, that's going to wrap up musical form in modern day music. I hope you had a great time, learned a lot about form in terms of classical form, modern day form, and then bringing down the house with the, Under the Bridge by the Chili Peppers. Hey, thanks for watching, everybody. I'm Professor Ron. Enjoy your life, enjoy the music, and I'll see you in the next one. We all listen to music for different reasons and different kinds of things. Have you ever asked yourself why you are so drawn to that song, artist, or album? Many years ago, I didn't really think that deeply about music the way I do now. For me, in my skateboard days and playing drums in a rock band, I just enjoyed the music. I didn't really get into the stories or details or anything to do with elements, or so I thought. You see, I say that now, but when I really think back to all those wonderful years, there were a lot of emotional connections to music that I was making, and they were because of the story. I was drawn to all kinds of music, like most of us are today, but I didn't always know why or really understand. Sometimes, I connected to the story of the song and the lyrics, or the MTV video. Yes, that used to be cool. MTV used to play videos 24/7, and it was awesome. When I look back now, with my formal training in music and my gig experience with live music, it all starts to make sense. So, I used to listen to songs like REM. There's a song called Losing My Religion. Now, at the time, I didn't really know why, but as I sat and thought about why did I listen to that song? Why was I drawn to REM, or why that specific song? So when I think back, I start to remember that I was a little sad. I was sad for a few days, and this song actually helped get that happiness back. And I know that might sound odd or weird, but it's the truth. Sometimes when we're down, struggling, or have obstacles, we may be drawn to a song that we might think is sad, but a lot of times the goal is to get us back to happiness. Another thing, years ago, I lost a best friend. I turned on the radio. I heard a Coldplay song. The song by Coldplay is called Fix You. Now, this is hard for me to talk about without tearing up, but I can tell you, whether it was on the radio or maybe I had the CD, CDs used to be the way we listened to music in the old days. And you can still buy CDs today, and occasionally I will buy a CD for maybe my favorite band, artist, whether it be percussion, orchestra, or Eminem or whoever. At any rate, I was really torn up about losing, a friend. Whenever you lose somebody, family, friend, I mean, goodness, you could lose your puppy. There's no rules on loss. The thing about loss is it's hard for everybody. And so, as humans, our big things, we want to connect with people. Like, connection is the most important thing. As much as many of us are fans of Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, etc., I want to encourage and challenge everyone to push that stuff to the side. And if you have an opportunity to have a real face-to-face conversation, please connect. So important for humanity to continue to thrive, is connection. So, loss, whether it's me or anybody else, loss it's hard to deal with. It's a struggle. The song helped me get through it. But every time I listen to the song, I am reminded of that friend. And while it's maybe a little bit sad from time to time, it starts to turn into those happy moments where you get those happy videos and or pictures. It's that remembering that leads it to the happiness. Music is such a beautiful thing, isn't it? So, now music is not just for when we're down, struggling, or sad from loss. Music can also be uplifting, inspiring, just happy, good vibes. How about those happy moments? I have tons of happy moments. My happy moments, they go on and on and on. I don't want to say that it's necessarily my favorite, but hopefully as I do this, it will catch your attention and you'll start to think about your happy moments. Remember, music is not just major and minor. Music is not just happy and sad. There is no right or wrong way to listen to music, to play music, to enjoy music. There is no really good or bad music. I mean, we live in a world of opinions and drama and gossip and so many other things. So I say that to hopefully be inspiring that like your music is your music for whatever the reason is you enjoy or listen to that music, whether it be music for the gym or music for road trips or music in between classes or, music while you're doing the dishes or you're actually at a concert. Like, us teachers, professors, mentors, we can go all day on these kind of things, right? It'll be one of the common things you'll hear me say. But the point being is that the music is to you what it is to you. We've heard artists like Bob Dylan and so many others where someone will, years and years ago, you can go to YouTube and you can listen to an interview with Bob Dylan and someone will ask the question, Bob Dylan or Mr. Dylan, can you tell us why you wrote that song? Or can you tell us what this song is about? And you'll find clips where he's kind of snappy about some of that. And he's like, what does the song mean to you? What do you think it means? Not verbatim, but, sometimes artists can get touchy about everybody wanting to dissect everything. And so I find myself in between both worlds of being a modern professional percussionist, having classical formal training, but also having the road gig band training experience as well, where like I'm playing drums in a band. I play in a symphony orchestra now. So I've always found it interesting how different the hangouts are, whether it's a symphony orchestra or I'm playing in a rock band. All the fun is awesome and still just equally as amazing and the same. But there are like very cool things that I've been able to bring to both of those arenas. So in terms of, emotional connection to music, it's not just black and white or gray, and it's not just major, minor, happy, sad. Music can hit home on a wide range of sentiments, colors, and really music, as you'll hear me say at the end of the lecture today, it's really the eye of the beholder, and that's you. So, the happy moment. The year is 2003. I'm at the Percussive Arts Society International Convention in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, I was still in college getting my undergraduate degree in music performance at the University of Texas at Arlington, and I had been competing in the PASIC, we call that PASIC the acronym for the Percussive Arts Society International Convention, which I struggle to say with braces, all right? But at the PASIC College Snare Drum Competition, I've been doing that for 3 years. This was it. It's my last one. I'd done it 3 years in a row, and 2003 was my last year as a student getting my degree in music performance at UT Arlington. It was my last and my final third year in the comp. So, when you participate for multiple years in something like drum and bugle corps, indoor drumline, summer camps, basketball, fishing, chess, math, coding, swimming, etc., the list goes on these kind of things. But here's the point. You make a lot of wonderful friends, and many of them are for life. You get so close at these kinds of things because you are living for days, weeks, or months, and you will attend these big, shorter events for multiple years, like these conventions. While it's just 2, 3, 4 days, you're going on years in for, the span of a career, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So you make a lot of friends. And while the spans and the gatherings are different, there's a lot of friends to be made, and it's a lot of fun to be had for sure. So the percussion convention is just a few days, but the bonds you make also in competitive music and, of course, competitive sports. Oh yeah, those connections. It's like it goes beyond your lifetime. It lasts a lifetime and beyond. Those connections it's wicked, just wicked awesome. And hopefully you'll experience that, or you already have. So what happens next at the PASIC drum competition? This is where I think it's pretty awesome, or it's really about to get interesting, is that we're all drumming in the warm-up room in Louisville, Kentucky. We're laughing, just having a good time, hanging out, chilling, vibing, as you might say, or some say. We were playing things together like universal warm-ups or other popular things of the time. And then one by one, we started to take a break. And before many of us know it, we are in the bathroom or restroom, whatever you want to call it, and washing our hands. It's like checking our hair, washing our hands. How do I look? And we all have some kind of listening device. If you were to go to Google and look up what was the listening devices for the year 2003, well, that's a fun one. So I won't spoil all of the thunder. At any rate, we put our cool music stuff down for a moment, and then this part I don't remember, but what I remember is the song. Someone starts singing, and then at a particular point in the bathroom, restroom, we all start singing the song Lose Yourself by Eminem. Now, I think Eminem put out the Lose Yourself song, I want to say maybe that was, 2002, and of course written for his bio movie. But wow, what an amazing event. We're competitive, everybody wants to do well, but we'd been doing that for so many years. Everyone just got to be so close and knew each other. We're, in 1 minute, we're just jamming, playing some drums, warming up, chatting, and then we're taking turns playing our solos for each other. A lot of times we think fierce competition is like mean and not friendly and everyone wants to get first place, but when you're in it, that's not actually how it is. It can look like that for some people, or it can feel like that in some organizations. But I would say if it's like that in that organization, give another organization a shot. If it's self-imposed by yourself, competition, a lot of times we talk about how, does greatness fuel competition? Does competition fuel greatness? Is there more I could say on that? Sure. But the big thing about competitive things is it, a better person. It pushes you to be a better sportsman, a better musician, on all fronts. As fierce and competitive as things may get in sports, music, and more, it's not as cutthroat or fierce as it might look like for those looking at it from the outside in. When you're in, oh, this is actually a really cool, awesome vibe. And if it's not, that's what I was saying earlier, you explore all the vibe options and groups and whatnot for whatever you're doing, but we're all singing Eminem. That's the point. We're singing that song. Super happy. I'll never forget that moment. I'm not going to sing it for you today, nor I'll ever do that. But I had a great 3-year run. I will never forget the happiness of that singing moment. And our draw specifically was the lyrics in that moment. We were drawn to the lyrics. We were really pumped. Here's another one for you. I'm driving in my car with my wife. We were listening to the radio, and a Snoop Doggy Dogg song comes on. And I'm like, yeah, all right. My son, who was not born yet, seemed to really like the song and let us know it's some kicking. Maybe this sounds far-fetched, or maybe the music was just too loud. At any rate, it's such a cool and great memory. So, I could keep going. As I said earlier, I could go all day with all these happy song moments. I actually have, quite a lot of them. I will say that, with YouTube today and so many other outlets like social media, websites, blogs, e-commerce, we really do have a good bit of the world at our fingertips. And, how we consume our daily dose of music, or what some might say our daily dose of medicine, like music can be your daily dose of medicine, as Evelyn Glennie says in her TED Talk, How to Truly Listen. There's something to it there. How we consume, it's of course changed over time and will probably continue to do so. We'll all be watching that one. Watchful eye, of course. Maybe some of the reasons we are so drawn to music is that there is some kind of connection we have to the song. And that connection might just be the melody or rhythm. It could be the lyrics, word for word, and how some of us feel that the song is talking to us, or that the song is about us, or that the song is about you. It's about you. Sometimes we're drawn to music for just move, groove, and dance. And that's cool too. Music is in the eye of the beholder, and that's for all of us. All right. Let's take a look at yesterday, the Beatles, Paul McCartney. Moving forward with the stories behind the music. All right, so Paul lost his mom when he was young. When you listen to the song, many people think it's about losing a loved one. Mom, dad, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, or wife. That is surely possible. Now, when you listen to the song for the very first time, and you do not search up anything, you don't Google anything, what comes to your mind? Now, for yesterday, some people believe that this song has a connection to Paul's ex, Jane Asher, whom he met before he wrote the song. However, the breakup does not coincide with the song release. But here's the plot twist. He did write the song while living with his then girlfriend, you guessed it, Jane Asher. Although it's many years after his mom passes, it is possible that this is, Paul McCartney releasing his pain. Maybe. Some people have talked about that. In an interview with Paul McCartney, he talks about how he woke up from a dream, wrote down the melody early in the morning. Now, the original lyrics were about scrambled eggs. Now, you can read some accounts where, when they were trying to figure out the name of the song to go from scrambled eggs to yesterday, that, it was, John Lennon's idea. Or you hear him talking about how they worked on the song for this many months or a year or whatever. There's certainly some different and varied accounts on a lot of this, but the common threads are simply this. He did meet Jane, like Jane and him met before he wrote the song, and he was living with Jane when he wrote the song. I want to say maybe in the attic of the live with Jane's family. And he did actually have a dream, but when you hear Paul McCartney talk about this on YouTube, there's one video. It's very short and sweet, and there's some interviews. I haven't found one, and you might. There's not something where he just pours out his heart and soul. Maybe on some of these podcasts, which are on my to-do list. I haven't listened to them all, but I did, even as I was prepping for today, I was double checking. Okay, I have some pretty awesome students. I know they're gonna check me on this. So I did listen to Paul talk about it, a few hours ago. I heard him talking about it. And in the different videos or podcasts I was able to just double check as I'm getting ready for today, he didn't go on and on. He's pretty much boom, boom, boom. So what Paul does say is, yes, I woke up from a dream and I did write down the melody. And I wrote about scrambled eggs. On YouTube, he didn't say that he was hungry. Maybe he was. In the YouTube video that I was watching, he didn't talk about hunger or how he wanted sausage or bacon or eggs over it. It was really short and sweet and simple. And the other video I found is pretty much the same thing. So maybe in these podcasts, he elaborates more. But at any rate, the original lyrics were about scrambled eggs on the song Yesterday. And with all these different stories about the song floating around, even when you look at all the things that, Paul McCartney or John Lennon or anyone but the Beatles there do seem to be some inconsistencies and, of course, variations. And this is normal over time. You got to remember that a lot of these things, when we talk about like history and things that happened, when you put years, time, and space in between, things can be embellished, they can be exaggerated. Honestly, they could just be forgotten, and you're like, hey man, like what how did that go down? And you're asking your friend how it went down, but you're the one that was leading all the action. So while the human brain is miraculous, we can still forget, things here and there. And then as the years go by, and maybe, let's say it's been 30 years, and you're asking an artist like, hey, why'd you write the song, or what was this about, or what's the real deal? You never told us the real deal. Are you willing to maybe share that stuff now? And then, maybe they do, but maybe it's they're doing their best to try to. And then a couple days later, they go on another podcast show, whatever, and remembering that this, that's been 30 or so years, and they're asked the same question, but then they give the answers a little bit different. But the heart of it, you will get, is the same. So the heart of Yesterday by Beatles, Paul McCartney, it's the same. Like the common threads are, yeah, he's living with Jane. Yes, the original lyrics are about scrambled eggs. No, it has nothing to do with him breaking up with Jane Asher. These are some common threads there. So what you could listen to get this information and/or more is the Paul McCartney podcast. You can find this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iHeartRadio. Check it out. You could also check out the Music History Project podcast. You can find this on the NAMM website, National Association of Music Merchants. It's www.namm.org. Also, check out the book, The Beatles from A to Z, an alphabetical mystery tour. It's a great read by Peter Asher. So, the next song, we want to talk about the story. It's called Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Under the Bridge, it was originally a poem, and now many would consider a masterpiece. And Anthony shares his struggles openly, and he touches a lot of people. Now, the meaning and the story behind the lyrics for many artists have a visceral connection, a deep connection. It's very meaningful. Got some pretty killer guitar playing in the beginning of the song. And if we do a breakdown of the form, like really simply and quickly, I'd say you've got an intro with the guitar solo, and then it goes to verse 1. Then we get a transition. Then we get verse 2. Then we get a transition and a chorus. Then we get a transition in verse 3. Transition, chorus. Then I'd say transition, bridge, secondary chorus. Then we get a little bit of a vocal noodle, lead line thing happening. You get an instrumental outro, and you got some guitar and bass just, throwing down, closing out the piece. So that's the basics of the form there. Now, I would say, although Under the Bridge this is a song about isolation, loneliness, isolation, addiction, recovery. Maybe you're sad, you're lonely, you're isolated, you're struggling with some addiction things. You're also trying to recover. And, this song, it's gentle, it's calming. It's one of those songs that for many kind of pierces the soul. And it's a popular song. It may be the band's, it may be the Red Hot Chili Peppers, one of their biggest and one of their biggest hits. So I will say that, substance abuse, it's had a huge impact on a lot of bands, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers are no exception. So at one point, the story goes like this, that Rick Rubin had got a hold of this, or he's looking through some stuff. Rubin sees it. This story gets it's told over and over again. So it's like, well, Anthony didn't just go, hey, here's my poem about struggling or whatever. Maybe they were hanging out, or Rick went to visit him, or Anthony maybe had papers. However this went down with all the variations of the story, Rick Rubin did actually get to see the poem that Anthony wrote, Under the Bridge. And Rick thought it was brilliant. And Anthony was reluctant. He was like, I don't know, it's just too soft, too chill, too gentle, too calming. This is not This is not the kind of energy, funkiness. This is not like our vibe. I don't think my bandmates, my friends, I don't think they're going to like it, Rick. And then what happens next is intriguing because, that Rick Rubin convinces him, you got to do it. I really think this is going to resonate with the band. And so he's like, all right, cool. So he does it, and Anthony sings it, sings the lyrics to John and Chad, and they, man, it was like, as they, what do we say? The rest is history, pretty much. It's like everybody was like, the bandmates were pretty much, blown away. It was pretty much the complete opposite of anything that band has ever done, period. It's almost like, is this even the Red Hot Chili Peppers? But now, when many of us think of like struggles, obstacles, or even if you're thinking about, if I just push those words to the side and say, hey, like when you think of the Chili Peppers, what are those songs? Well, they've got a lot of songs that people just adore. So everyone's gonna, maybe have their own song. But the band really took to this one. So, the whole song is, it's about, Anthony had this connection, and when he needed to get his stuff, he would go down to an actual bridge. So there's a bridge somewhere downtown in the middle of Los Angeles, as Anthony says, in the ghetto. And this freeway bridge, there's like a little passage or small something that you could go through, and it's like only certain members of people could get through and allowed to go there. And they you had basically certain members of a gang and ex-convicts, and it's like it was very guarded in terms of gang control of this secret hush area, whatever. And they actually let in Anthony because there was a guy there, this guy Mario. He was a Mexican mafia ex-convict, and they would just hang out and just chill and walk the streets of downtown LA and looking for their next thing. And so he had a connection into this into the I guess the dark side, as you might say. And so he got in, and Anthony talks about, and you can find this in a couple areas, articles, books maybe, but he says that the reason they let me in, because this guy Mario said I was going out with his sister, which this was a lie, so we could just go in there, because of course Mario was allowed in. But it's like, hey, who's this guy? So Anthony talks about how this is a very low point. It was a low. He was pretty down. It was low, and he was just trying to, he's trying to get through life and figuring out how to do it. So the song is about Anthony's struggles, and the good news is he gets clean. And Anthony did have his ups and downs with all that, but he kicks it, and he gets clean. He finds the light, finds the happiness. He gets back, to full, amazing, awesomeness. The Red Hot Chili Peppers have thrived. Now, I'm not talking about all of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' struggles with the different members. I mentioned, a little bit of the preamble, and then Anthony. But the whole point is, with this song, it's about Anthony's struggles. While there are other struggles in the group, the focus right now is, okay, what's the song about? Is this bridge a real place? Yes. How did he get in there? Well, I told you that, right? Did he kick it? Did he master it? Did he get clean? Is everything all good? Yes. Yes. And yes. So when you listen to the song, it's not necessary when you listen to music to know the story of the song you're listening to. It's possible that some music that we listen to, maybe it doesn't have a story. It's like, well, but there's lyrics. If there's lyrics, isn't there some kind of deep connection story? No, that's not always the case. There are songs all throughout time that it's a song, and yes, it has, lyrics. Maybe it doesn't have lyrics. It can be instrumental. It can be a song that's, instruments and, has lyrics, text. It can be absolute music that's just straight up music. It could be programmatic music where there's a story. But it can sometimes be just nonsensical music. And when I mean by nonsensical music, it's not that I don't like it. I'm readily admit that I listen to nonsensical music as much as probably anybody else, because there's just some music where you're like, well, those lyrics make no sense. So then I'm like, well, why do I even listen to this song? Oh, because I'm riding my skateboard, or I'm mountain climbing, or, at the gym. Like, it's because, just because the lyrics don't necessarily make sense, it doesn't make it a bad song. And just because someone doesn't like that particular song doesn't make it a bad song. Well, I don't like that song. That doesn't mean it's a bad song. The lyrics are nonsensical. That doesn't mean it's a bad song, because we're all drawn to music for different kinds of reasons, for different kinds of things. And so I want to make sure that hits home. So when you're listening to Under the Bridge by the Red Hot Chili Peppers, remember that while the song is about struggles, obstacles, and Anthony's whole life struggle, he does find the light. He does get through it. He does kick it. So yeah, that is the stories behind the music. We'll see you then. I'm Professor Ron. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.